My name is Gordon Fearey. I'm here at the Brazilian Endowment for the Arts, and this is the Brazil USA exhibit, which I'm a part of. This is my work. These are photographs of clothing and fabric that I placed underwater. These are giclée prints, archival pigment prints. They're about 22 by 33, something like that. I began taking photographs of fabric underwater originally where I was actually looking at the clothing itself. They were like, reminded you of a water burial. You felt the absence of the wearer. I found myself focusing in on the patterns of the clothing and the fabric. I was more interested in these kinds of structures than that allude to people and allude to clothing more than the sense of death and burial. The fabric seemed to feel like a common denominator with other structures, unknown structures, known structures, chaos in this kind of landscape underwater. But let me first tell you how I made these things. They're in the water. I'm at a stream near my home, or at low tide, up to here and up to my waist, or in a swimming pool. And these things are floating in the water, then sinking. They're like pigment underwater. They're pieces of pigment, sometimes more than one piece of clothing or piece of pigment that I'm then poking around, swirling around with a long stick. It's really like painting, except that I'm having to hold this heavy camera and then look through it and then poke with, it's actually very awkward. I should have 5 assistants. That would be ideal. But every poke and every swirl makes a different image. And of course I have to get lucky, and I'm taking hundreds of pictures. So then there's the sort of post-production, and I'm looking through all these hundreds of pictures and seeing what works. And what works for me, what I care about, is this feeling, first of all, of something close to home. The buttons, even the thread, the texture of the fabric, or even the environment, not in these here, but in another one, a pine needle, or a bubble or two. Bubbles over here. Sometimes you see a collar. So there's some little vestige of clothing and the body. And then there is this structure, this feeling of structure, you know, the kind of typical plaid grid, which I cannot get myself to wear anymore. Although there was a time in my life where when it felt like comfort. You know, I mean, what is that? It's like post and lintel. It's static, it's stable. And I think I loved the very first time I just tossed it into a stream. There was something wonderful about that I really enjoyed that. And then as soon as it hits the water and starts to sink, and maybe the current of an eddy carries it around and around, and little bits of grass are floating around, and it's still the plaid. It has that identity, in a sense, but it has obviously changed. It's been transformed. You know, and that having that fundamental identity and being different was good. So that's the second thing. The third thing is this feeling of another world. You know, the world underwater. Now, as I mentioned, these are like landscapes. They are landscapes to me. I'm definitely a landscape person. This one is a good example of something. That the reason I picked this particular crop is that black gash. Now, this was a sarong. I think that's what they're called. and I was at low tide in Cape Cod. The water, it was a gray day, believe it or not, and this darkness of this landscape to me is a way of looking through a hole to some other place, some other world. And that I care about. In a sense, I care about that in all of these. I'm always looking for that, to have that scope from the right here, in fact, right here, the body, to the exact opposite. I'm trying to cover that scope. Thanks.